Greetings, lovers of mysticism and the unknown. Welcome to the Incredible Stories channel. We are explorers of the unexplainable and unbelievable. Today, I will tell you an interesting story. Brew up some goodies and enjoy. Climbing a hill near Johannesburg, the woman saw a silver disc hovering low there. And then she had a telepathic connection with one of the aliens. He was very human-like, and they began a love affair that led to the birth of a child. Elisabeth Klarer's story is one of the most bizarre and unusual in ufology, so much so that many have suspected Elisabeth of making things up for the sake of self-interest or simply of having too much imagination. At the same time, the woman herself assured that everything she told was true, even if it included falling in love with an alien, having a child with him, and traveling to colorful star worlds. Some directly accused Elisabeth of being crazy, eccentric, or suffering from some kind of mental problems. That said, Elisabeth Klarer was quite intelligent, literate, and educated. She was born in 1910 in South Africa. Her parents were of noble birth, and the girl from a young age was interested in music and science. Elisabeth was particularly interested in meteorology, and when World War II broke out, she worked in South African Air Force intelligence and decoded secret German radio transmissions. After the war, she also did not do anything eccentric or flighty. But in 1950, she accidentally got her hands on a book about UFOs, and she immediately remembered something that had long ago gone somewhere in the depths of her memory. She remembered that when she was 7 years old, she and her sister had seen a silver disc flying in the sky, glowing and hovering very low, just above their farm. And this was not a solitary event, but only the first of a whole series in which little Elisabeth observed flying discs. Those memories and reading a book about UFOs turned Elisabeth into a big fan of ufology. But the strangest events in her life began in 1954. Elisabeth learned that people often saw UFOs over a hill in the countryside near Johannesburg, so she decided to go there and investigate. When Elisabeth arrived there and talked to the local Zulu, they told her that a lightning bird lived on the hill, and that it had been told about in their legends for years. When Elisabeth climbed the hill herself, she immediately encountered a low-hanging disc-shaped object. It made a humming noise, and in the ship's portholes, Elisabeth saw humanoid creatures. She wanted to get closer, but was sharply pushed away by a wave of hot air. But she immediately received a telepathic connection with the UFO creature, who said his name was Akan. Elisabeth conversed with him for some time and realized with each passing minute that she wanted to know more about these creatures. When the contact ended and the UFO flew away, Elisabeth came to the hill several more times over the next 2 years, hoping to talk to Akan again. In 1956, she was given a second chance. When Elisabeth came to the hill again, she saw a flying disc descend, land on top of the hill, and then Akan emerged from it and invited Elisabeth inside. Next to him was his friend, whom Akan introduced as a botanist and astrophysicist. And then they both began to take Elisabeth around the ship and tell her about it. They told her that their drive was a scout ship and that there was a mothership orbiting the planet that was much larger than this one. They flew there, and Elisabeth saw a huge cigar-shaped object that was 8 miles long, so she was told. Inside this ship, everything looked like a huge, beautiful city. There were houses, parks with trees, glades of flowers, and even artificial lakes. And of course, there were a lot of humanoids. Elisabeth described them as very similar to humans, but taller, prettier, more polite, gentler, not at all aggressive or violent. Akan and the others told Elisabeth that they actually came from Venus and that they lived on it before it turned into a cold lump of rock. When Venus died, they flew to a planet called Meton and now live there. They described that when Venus was a normal planet, there were many plants and it was very similar to Earth. They told them that Venus died because its orbit changed and it came too close to the sun, and that when they realized that the irreparable would happen, they began to fly away from Venus in search of other worlds and used the Earth and Moon for temporary layovers. Elisabeth learned that the Venusians still have their bases on Earth, the Moon, and also on Mars, and they visit them regularly because they feel responsible for the fate of the Earthlings and want to make them more evolved. After this detailed tour, Elisabeth was returned again to Earth, to the same hill, But even then she realized that Achan was very much attracted to her as a man. Achan also developed feelings for Elisabeth. In the following months they met several times, and Achan gave her a special ring, with the help of which Elisabeth could communicate with him telepathically at any time. There was also intimate contact between them, after which Elisabeth realized one day that she was pregnant. It was 1958, and when Elisabeth told Achan about the baby, he suggested she fly to their planet Meton so Elisabeth could give birth there. So they did. The planet Meton was very advanced and was one of the 7 planets inhabited by the Venusians. Elisabeth then described in detail what civilization looked like on that planet, and her words painted a perfect society as in a utopia. There were no wars, no crime, no poverty. Everyone had equal rights, and everyone had equal access to food. There was no money system, and all homes and businesses were powered by renewable and unlimited energy. People wore luxurious clothes made of silk and lived mostly in vast park areas. Their cities had no high-rise houses, no factories, and the air was very clean. The children were taught by telepathy, and so they had no textbooks or schools. In an interview with ufologist Stuart Bush, Elisabeth recounted, for example, this: Meton is similar in size to Earth, but it's a little bigger and it's almost all covered by oceans. Parts of the land there are islands, not continents. The climate is very good, and they keep it under control. They have pretty much everything you could want. It really is utopia. Not only are they thousands of years more technically advanced than we are, but they are also spiritually very advanced. They have no politicians, no laws, no money. Medicine there is a science that is not even considered necessary for health. They are all healthy as it is. Their way of thinking is different from ours. They are very loving, gentle, and creative people. Everyone does the job they love the most. There is no need for law, no crime, and no police. Everyone's behavior is controlled only by a code of ethics. They constantly create beauty around them. There is complete harmony with that. Their houses are beautiful and made of transparent walls. They have no books, but they make up for it by frequent travels throughout the galaxy and always take their children with them, even the youngest ones, to learn from their experiences. They have technology that allows them to see into the past at any point in history. They can, for example, see our planet at the time of the dinosaurs. They paint beautiful pictures and write wonderful harmonic music. They have no problem learning languages because communicating through telepathy doesn't require it. Anyway, Elisabeth found herself in a wonderful place, and of course, she really wanted to stay there forever. But it turned out to be impossible. It was explained to her that the vibrations of Meton were very different from those on Earth, and if Elisabeth stayed there too long, her heart would become very weak. Elisabeth was forced to say a tearful goodbye to Achan, and leaving her son Eiling with him, she returned to Earth. In the years that followed, Achan and Eiling visited Elisabeth many times on Earth, and then Achan and his son went on a great journey across the galaxy. In the mid-1970s, Elisabeth told the whole story to ufologists and became very popular in their community. Journalists were interested in her, and she attended various conferences about UFOs. Unfortunately, elsewhere Elisabeth was largely ridiculed for her fantasies and making things up. In 1980, Elisabeth Klarer published a book about herself, Beyond the Light Barrier, but after that she became even more insulted and even harassed. Threats and intimidation were sent to her, so soon she decided to go underground. She stopped communicating with ufologists and journalists. In the 1990s, she worked on her second book, The Gravity File, but didn't have time to finish it, passing away in 1994. The story of Elisabeth Klarer still makes many people smile skeptically and reads like a fairy tale, but Elisabeth herself, according to her entourage, was sane until old age, did not look like a crazy dreamer, and always said that her words are true. What did you think of it? Write in the comments. Be sure to get likes, subscribe to our channel, and check out other amazing stories.